Right now on the phone with me, I have Mr. Eugene Williams Jr., educator, writer, motivational speaker, entertainer, and he's also a man of the first and the boldest, and he can finish the rest.
Oh, 06.
All right, and if you're not Greek, don't do that. Mr. Williams, welcome to the Time Machine, my man.
How you doing? It's a pleasure to be on here. I'm so glad that I had a chance to speak to your listeners, and just thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
It's no problem, man. I appreciate you. You know what I mean? You've been on several big-name shows, and you're on a teeny-tiny college radio station with only 18 watts.
Hey, you know what, though? Whenever I'm amongst people and amongst good people, it's always a big audience in my eyes. So you're doing me as big a favor as anybody. So I'm just glad to be out here. I'm glad to be on your show. I want to be at the ground level of your ascendancy as one of the great radio personalities of our time.
I appreciate it, man. Now let's go ahead and get started. How did you get the acting bug, and what was that like making the audition rounds when you were a kid?
Well, I started acting quite by accident. My father and mother are both educators. At the time, my father was a professor at Howard University. I was living in Columbia, Maryland, and I could read at a real young age. I've been reading ever since I was about 2.5 years old. My dad's tax consultant came over and had some brochures, and I started reading through them. And he was like, "Your kid can read at such a young age?" Well, I had a friend who is looking for minority kids to be in commercials, and this is right around the time when they were trying to get more of us on TV. In the late 60s, early 70s. And so I went and auditioned, and the first commercial I auditioned for was an Utz potato chip commercial. And that went very, very well. And it went so well, the second commercial, I didn't even have an agent yet, and some producers had called me saying, "We want somebody to do a commercial for Sunbeam Bread." That was my second commercial, which was a national commercial. And people saw me from that commercial. I still didn't have an agent yet. And I got my first big national commercial sitting aside Mr. Bill Cosby back in 1974 in the very first Jello Pudding Commercial. And that's where it started from there. After that, I did commercials for Scope Mouthwash, Kentucky Fried Chicken, Johnson's Baby Powder, a variety of products. Was the first recurring black actor on a soap opera called Search for Tomorrow. I played an orphan named Jamie Lawrence. Did a lot of different television correspondence gigs, and a lot of things moved from there, movies, what have you. So I was just enjoying a life in the television world, in the movie world, from the ages of 4 to about 14 or 15 years old.
Now, back in the 70s, this was right around the time when I believe Rodney Allen Rippey was doing, I think, was it Jack in the Box?
Jack in the Box. I came out with guys like Rodney Allen Rippey, Mason Reese, Gary Coleman. We all were doing a thing all about the same time, yes.
Okay, so what was it like doing the Jello Pudding commercial with the Cos?
Well, it was a fantastic time because, this was a time when he was also at his peak in terms of popularity. He was doing shows like The Electric Company and Captain Kangaroo and had his own comedy show. And he was just a joy to work with. I remember there was one kid who kept forgetting his lines. And Mr. Cosby said, "Okay, kid, you keep forgetting your lines, it's going to be a problem." And sure enough, by about take 20, Mr. Cosby shoved some pudding in the young man's nose. And we were all sitting there with our mouths agape because we were like, "Oh, no, what's going to happen here?" The parents didn't know what to do. We didn't know what to do. But we just all laughed it off, and we knew right then it was going to be a really, really interesting shoot. And we had a great time. It was a pleasure to be with him.
So he was like, "Eugene, you see, I like to eat my Jello, the pudding cold in the freezer, and my wife Camille likes to take it out and set it to room temperature, and therefore you got to eat it with the Coogee sweater on."
He had the whole thing going the whole time, but he wanted to. We were kids. We had never done this before. We were all pretty new to the acting industry. He wanted to make us feel at ease, and we just laughed at him all afternoon. They had a great time with him. It was fantastic.
And then later on after that, everybody came to know who the Cos was because of a little show called The Cosby Show.
That's right. And if I had zigged when I should have zagged, I auditioned for the part of Theo and got called back for it, but I didn't get the part. I lost it to Malcolm Jamal Warner.
Wow. I did not know that. So, okay, you're working with Bill Cosby. You also worked with the likes of Mr. Ray Charles, Pearl Bailey, Stephanie Mills, and the late, great Ozzie Davis. So what was it like working with Ozzie Davis?
Ozzie Davis was fantastic. I did a film with him called The Man Who Loved the Stars, and it was a life story of Benjamin Banneker. And I played a little slave boy who was Benjamin Banneker's assistant as he was getting ready to put together the plans for Washington, D.C., and I learned a great deal from Mr. Davis, truly a class act and one of the great thespians of this or any other time.
Okay. And then after you did the acting thing, you went to the McDonough School in Baltimore. Now, is that like a private school, or how does that work?
It was a private school. This was still while I was involved in acting. By, I guess, around first or second grade, I went to the McDonough School, very prestigious school in the Baltimore, Maryland area, former military school. I was there and did plays there and played football and did all the young, fun kid things to do. After I left McDonough, my parents got divorced, and I moved with my mother to Miami. So in my high school years, I went to another private school called the Ransom Everglades School, where I continued to act in plays and musical theater, and still do the football thing and the chorus thing, and try to be a jack of all trades. So it was. I've had a very normal childhood, but a very exciting one at the same time.
Now I'm sure by you being up near, Maryland, D.C., I'm sure you know all about that good go-go.
Oh, no question. Chuck Brown and EU and just Rare Essence. That's what we grew up on. So every time I hear the go-go beat, I do start to move a little bit, no question about it.
Yeah, because like down here, you got some students from the DMV area. For those of you who don't know, DMV is D.C., Maryland, Northern VA. And when they play go-go, it's kind of like you get some people from like down south like to move to it, but it's definitely like a DMV thing.
Oh, no one can dance to go-go like people from Maryland, D.C., and Virginia, no question about it. They are the masters of that go-go beat, the go-go sound.
And, of course, you got the mambo sauce, too, on the chicken wings out in D.C. at the Chinese food restaurants.
Oh, yeah. That's very popular. That's if you haven't had the mambo sauce with the chicken wings, you haven't been through D.C., Maryland, and Virginia, no question about it.
Yeah, I got to go ahead and cop some of that, because I've been hearing about mambo sauce for all my people that's from up in the DMV area, and I'm like, man, I got to go try me some when I go to the 202, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, but now remember also, I also spent some of my teenage years in Miami, Florida, so if you have any Miami listeners, tell them I also know about the boiled fish and grits and the conch fritters and the black-eyed peas and rice as well for all my Bahamian friends by way of Miami.
And you were down in Miami probably during the time when the whole Miami bass scene was taking off with Uncle Luke and Two Live Crew.
Absolutely, the beginning of all that. And so, that was. I remember those days because you could drive down the street, and what they used to do was just put the speakers out on the street in front of a person's house. So every party was a street party, whether you wanted it to be one or not. You couldn't drive by any neighborhood in Liberty City or Brown Sub or North Miami without hearing Luke and all his little protégés booming all over the street.
Yeah, you got me wanting to play some Trim, the cars that go boom, a little bit later, man. That's
Okay.
That's a Miami-based classic. So you're coming out of Ransom Everglades. So what made you want to go to Emory University?
Well, it was a real interesting story. Now, Emory University was funny because I originally wanted to go to Howard University, which was my father taught for many years when I was a really young kid. And this is going to be I don't want to cast any shade on Howard University. I just want to let everybody know this was a situation that happened for me. I applied to Howard, I applied to UVA, and I applied to University of Michigan and Emory. And, actually Howard was the school I wanted to go to. The other three were my so-called safe schools. But Howard lost my paperwork. And so Emory had the best financial aid package, so that's where I ended up going. I ended up going to Emory quite by accident. But I'm glad I made the decision to go there because I made a lot of great friends there, and I joined Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity there, and I made a lot of long-lasting, lifelong friendships.
Okay, now we were speaking on this before we went on the air that if you're black and you go to a predominantly white institution, you kind of catch a lot of flack from other African Americans because it's supposed to be like, oh, you're black, you're supposed to go to a HBCU. So tell me how you dealt with that criticism.
Well, that was the thing, people did criticize, but when I explained to people, I said, you can criticize all you want. I had to go where the convenience lied. I mean, I wanted to go to Howard. That was if I was going to go to an HBCU, that was the place I wanted to go because I had a special kinship with the people there. I knew people there. That didn't happen. And so then when I went to some other places and looked, I realized that the HBCUs weren't able to give me the same financial package as Emory was. So that I can go to a PWI, predominantly white institution, for free, as opposed to paying a nominal fee, but still a certain amount for the HBCU. I had to make the economic decision, and Emory was that for me. They paid my entire way, so I I went out to Atlanta, Georgia, and enjoyed my time out there.
And this was definitely right around the time when you entered Emory. You got your bachelor's degree in 91, so you had to be a freshman like around 87. So this
88, yeah.
So this was right around the time when A Different World and School Days was taking off, and everybody wanted to go to a HBCU.
And that was the big thing. Everybody was talking about HBCUs. They gained a huge amount of notoriety there at that time. But the thing that I enjoyed so much about going to Emory was, even though it was a predominantly white institution, it was in a predominantly black city. So I could go 20 minutes in any direction and still be in touch with our folks and our culture. And so it's the best of both worlds. I recommend Atlanta, Chicago, D.C., any of those cities to any of our African-American young people out here.
That's what I was about to mention. You're right there in the AUC near Spelman, Morehouse, Morris Brown.
Morris Brown, that's right.
So what was the party scene like? I know it had to be nuts.